Hi class, this is Marshall Sponder, your lecturer for Web Analytics and Intelligence, and this is our first meeting. I'm going to try to go through this fast because I don't want to belabor these videos. Let me see. Web Analytics is used to measure how the activity of websites happens, what's happening on them. So there's a bunch of reasons I gave you here. And I'm going to leave this in this view with the left views here on the left so that you can see what's coming up. Now typically you will collect information. There's a lot of stuff that happens on websites that's interesting. All of the different visits that happen to it and the clickstream that happen to it, and anytime someone clicks on something or hovers on something, all of that can be recorded, and often is. And some of those activities, or all of those activities, may be interesting. The data that Web Analytics collects is very structured, actually. Even though a lot of information is collected, it's sent over by an agent connected to the browser, like a JavaScript beacon pixel that collects the data and sends it where it's organized by the Web Analytics server into reports, and then that raw data is dumped usually. Analytics deals with a lot of different things, but marketing is also very broad. And what we find is that there's a lot more that's being collected than Web Analytics data, and sometimes there's a lot more things that are needed than Web Analytics data. Analytics data generally is good for things that happen on a website that's being measured, but obviously there's a lot more that's going on in a marketing initiative than just a website that's being measured. So often that information has to be merged with other information from other collection mechanisms, or like big data, point of sale data, and so on. And a lot of that is not always easily merged, or even ideally merged in a Web Analytics platform. It may sit in a cloud somewhere, or in Salesforce or Oracle or some other data warehouse type of thing. So it may not necessarily be the best thing to have these things. Apologize for the pop-ups here and interruptions that occasionally happen. The other thing is that if you go and do a search on LinkedIn, as I did here, you'll find that there's very few people that actually have Web Analytics, just specifically in quotes, in their title. Most people have it in their profile when they do have it, and you'll see that there's a lot of analysts out there, but there are very few people who define themselves as Web Analysts. It's better if you're broad and can deal with multiple things, and that's what I go for in this course. I don't go for turning you into a ninja, because I think that that's not our goal or our ability to do that here, and I think it's better just to educate you to be comfortable and knowledgeable in the space. The platforms in Web Analytics are fairly well organized to pull together the data they collect, the data that browsers are sending or other agents are sending them, but they don't require usually R or Python or some of these other languages. Some of my students have asked me about that, because lots of times people are using R to take the data out of Web Analytics and do other things with it, or to even do some predictive analytics on some of this data. We will not get into that in this course. I'm not saying that these aren't things that would be useful to know, and I know some of you are taking that in other courses. You're taking some of these things, and I know in some of our courses we do use IBM SPSS. We are using IBM Watson as well in some places. That could be loaded in, but we're not going to deal with that in this course. But in order to be effective, I don't think it's deniable that you need to know how to do some of these things. Get the right data to answer the right questions. And you need to know the business in order to do that. You need to know how it runs. So actually, you need to be a specialist in the business. You need to know what your objectives are. And a lot of times we don't. A lot of times we have to actually kind of think about what our objectives are. What do we want to accomplish? I want to relaunch my Webmetrics Guru site, for example, because I have a book coming out, Digital Marketing for Analytics. I want to launch that. And I need to get a lot of people, I need to get a lot of professors and lecturers and adjuncts to buy my book, obviously. So if I was going to use that as an example, I'd have to have ways of measuring, are they buying it? Right now, I know the one way I can measure it is to see what checks I get, like every year from Gohar and I get, because I have a co-author. But maybe I don't want to wait that long. Maybe I want to see if I could do something to make more happen faster, which is kind of usually what marketing is about. So maybe I need to have some initiatives to increase that activity. And so I'm going to go and create a website or revamp a website. So I have to decide, is the website effective or not for what I want it to do? So now I have to look at, well, what are the audiences coming to the website? What are the... so I'll do that over here, and I'll try to create some goals that are relatable to the website, which is these key performance indicators that I can pull right off. Well, actually, they're not actually the key performance indicator. They're the key business requirements. So like if, for example, if I wanted to create awareness of something, like my website, I'd launch a website. In this case, this example is in, I believe, Chapter 5 of the reading pack. That's actually an excerpt of our book, upcoming book. And then I would look at the analytics on the website, and also I'd be looking at social media as well. So I might not be getting everything from web analytics, from Adobe Analytics or Google Analytics in this case. And of course, the issue is that we're collecting a lot of data, but we don't always know which data is important. And also, when we're measuring data on consumers, they have their own ideas of what they want to do versus what we want them to do. So we need to figure out what they want to do, and also figure out, if there's a way for us both to be happy. And then find out what we make sense of that, which is the bottom here. How do we make sense of that? What do we do with that? Typically, we have a process. Everybody has a process. When we get up in the morning, we brush our teeth, we get ready, we have coffee, we go out, we work, or whatever we do. We repeat this process over and over again. Analytics is no different, and this is very common of any aspect of analytics. Even as we live our lives, we go through a cycle almost every week. We work 5 days a week, most of us, and then we go home and we have the weekend, and we do it all over again. Well, I got news for you. There's no escape from a certain amount of process. Yes, every once in a while we will take a vacation or take a break, but we need to define what that process is and what's the best process for us. In fact, that's success in life, I think. That's my definition, is finding out what's successful for you in life, and figuring out the best way to structure it. And I think successful businesses tend to have figured that out. That's partly why they're successful. So every business is going to be slightly different in their cycle of improvement. And every analytics process will too. And typically speaking, this way that I'm showing you here of visualizing analytics readouts has to do with a probably more business-oriented approach that says that when I need to have a marketing goal, and I do, I have a initiative and I have a stakeholder that takes care of some of those initiatives. Like, in other words, I need to grow my marketing, so I need to have a website, so I have a website marketing manager that manages all the marketing for that website, or say a brand manager. But then I have specific websites that fulfill that initiative, and then I have analytics that I pull from those websites that give me the information about how those things are doing. And these key performance indicators, the KPIs, are the actual things that get pulled from the analytics, whereas the key business requirement is the need to have the website, what it's supposed to do. So there's a difference. We eat to stay alive, but our key performance indicator is, does it taste good or something like that? I don't, how you breathe. Now, the biggest challenge to having this terminology of key performance indicators is that the ones that we pull out of a lot of these analytics tools that we use they're almost useless in the way they come out of the tools. In other words, to really make them useful, you have to customize them. But even the way that they're organized to be analyzed, to be arranged, is almost useless, because they don't really know. They're measuring things that the analytics platforms themselves are good at collecting. They're not necessarily measuring, like page views and visits. They're not able to know what combination of those are meaningful. So that's what this quote and actually comes from Gary Angel. So actually, in order to get anywhere, you have to configure the tools. And a lot of times that's where the art is, really. Figuring out what is needed to be measured and then figuring out how to arrange it. So, an example of that is, okay, so we went back and said, here, the key business requirement, increase revenues. That's an online thing, right? So I want to get more people to buy something that I have online. Or I want, and then how am I measure that? Well, I have a website that's a part of my key business requirement. Let's say my book, I want, and then I have people that go all the way through and read, and so I measure how many people look at 3 pages, or how many people, to say, purchase a book, or go to the publisher's book site, or Amazon and buy it. So there's all these metrics that are actually on the website. So they're all the way on the right. And of course, the key performance indicators are the things that are actually instrumented to the website. And that's what the analytics pulls. That's all it knows. It doesn't even know what those things mean. So what you'll need to do is figure out how to work on these things throughout the semester. Whether it's the summer, fall, or spring, as I don't always re-record these videos. Usually the way it goes in my courses is the first half of the discussions and assignments, discussions 1 through 6 and assignment 1 through 6, they're done by the midpoint. For summer, that's going to be sometime in the first or second week of July. In the fall, it'll be probably sometime near the end of October, something like that. And in the spring, it'll be sometime in late March or early April. Whatever I designate the midpoint is, that's when you need to get the first 6 assignments, 6 discussions, and maybe an introductory discussion done by that. And anything else that I put in those folders on the side. And that's it for the first lecture.